Every now and then, you see a play that's so strong and so clean that you can't help but just say, wow. Let me walk you through one of the coolest lines that I've seen in Pioneer. Our pilot today is Raest, a Lotus field combo specialist. Now, the goal of his deck is to get 2 Lotus fields in play, either naturally or by copying your first one with Thespian Stage to avoid having to sacrifice your lands. Once you have 2, you use untap effects like Hidden Strings, Vizier of Tumbling Sands, and Pour Over the Pages to generate more mana than you spent casting them to draw your deck and win the game. There's a variety of ways to win, but the currently most popular way is to use Emergent Ultimatum to eventually get an Omniscience into play, fetch a copy of Approach of the Second Sun from the sideboard with Fae of Wishes, and then tutor it and play it again using Dark Petition. Now, this list also uses an innovation from RC Atlanta, where some players had success adding Strict Proctor to the deck. Strict Proctor counters the downside of Lotus Field, while also taxing opponents enter the battlefield effects. The opponent is running Azorius and Soul. This is an aggressive tempo deck that leverages cards like Novice Inspector and Spyglass Siren to get an artifact into play on turn 1, followed by Ensoul Artifact on turn 2, turning that artifact into a 5/5. It can dial up the pressure with cards like All That Glitters and protect its board with Metallic Rebuke, hopefully long enough to kill the opponent. And unfortunately for us, tempo decks with disruption like this are typically pretty good against Lotus Field. The line I want to show off starts midway into Game 2. Raest has won Game 1 and is on the draw. He's decided to pivot away from the Emergent Ultimatums in favor of ramping into Zakama Primal Calamity, which is a common approach against decks that simply can't beat that once it resolves. It's our turn 4. Our opponent hit us for 8 last turn with a Smuggler's Copter and an All That Glitters the Warden of the Inner Sky, and we are at 8. We have a Strict Proctor in play that we used last turn to cheat a Lotus Field onto the battlefield. What would you do here? If you want, I really encourage you to take a moment, pause the video, and think it through. What's the best play? Okay, what did you come up with? We definitely have some options. Probably the most intuitive thing here is to play Thespian Stage and copy Lotus Field, and then you could cast Hidden Strings, untap your 2 Lotus Fields, cast Dark Petition, and start going off. But the opponent has 1 card in hand and the mana to cast Metallic Rebuke. If our Hidden Strings gets countered, and the opponent finds a way to remove the Proctor or pump up the Smuggler's Copter, then we're roasted. Maybe instead you just play Thespian Stage and say go, knowing that you have Beseiju to destroy either the Copter or the All That Glitters when they go to attack. That's safer, but we have better. Let's look at what Raest did. He starts by casting Hidden Strings, targeting Lotus Field and his opponent's only blue source. This is important. It nets 1 mana and forces them to make a decision if they have Rebuke. The opponent doesn't float a blue mana in response, which is probably a mistake, but even if they did, it wouldn't matter because we cipher Hidden Strings onto Strict Proctor. I had a huge blind spot for this because, for one thing, we usually want Hidden Strings in our graveyard to play again later with Lear, and B, because we're under so much pressure that attacking didn't even cross my mind. Now, we cast Scrying and fetch a Lotus Field and cheat it into play with the Proctor. Then play the second Proctor, tapping the Lotus Field to do it, and then when we hit them with the Proctor in combat, we get a free Hidden Strings and untap both fields. That leaves just enough mana to cast Dark Petition, fetch Pour Over the Pages, cast that, find Zakama and Archdruid's Charm, and untap both fields. And the rest, as they say, is technique. This is a totally dominant position now. We have a jump blocker for their attackers, Beseiju and Archdruid's Charm to kill both All That Glitters and Copter if need be, and if not, we can fetch Lear next turn with the Charm, with a Pour and the Dark Petition in the graveyard, and a Zakama coming to clean up the board. I thought this play was fantastic. It's a great example of how important it is to see the whole board and not get tunneled on one specific play pattern. Let me know what you thought. Was this kind of breakdown helpful to you? I know it helps me learn a lot. Let me know if there are other lines that you want to see broken down in the future, but that's all for now. I'll see you next time.